Welcome to Human Potential at Work, the show where we explore social impact, inclusion, and empowerment of everyone, including persons with disabilities. Your host is Deborah Rue, CEO of Rue Global Impact, and co-founder and chairwoman of Billion Strong, an identity and empowerment organization designed to bring billions of voices of persons with disabilities together. To join the global community and to donate to the cause, visit billion-strong.org. That's billion-strong.org. And now, on to the episode.
Hello, everyone. My name is Deborah Rue, and this is Human Potential at Work. I'm really excited to have Craig Spence on today. Craig Spence is the IPC, International Paralympic Committee's Chief Brand and Communications Officer, and he also is taking on We the 15, which is very, very exciting that the International Paralympics has created We the 15 with other partners, and I'm going to let Craig tell you about that. But before I do that, let me also remind you I'm the CEO of Rue Global Impact. We're very proud to be also creating Billion Strong to bring together with pride our lived experiences with disabilities. And we're very, very thrilled about We the 15, because we think that just really ties into everything that we're trying to do at Billion Strong and Rue Global Impact. And we're stronger together, right, Craig? But before I turn it over to Craig, I do want to give a visual description. I am an older white woman with gray hair and purple streaks in it, and I very proudly have Billion Strong behind me as my banner, and I'm wearing lots of green and teal today. So nicely dressed so that it's not so cold. But how cold is it where you are, Craig?
It's 2 degrees. I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's not particularly warm, and it's raining here in Germany.
Oh, geez, and raining too. So, but welcome to the program, Craig. And where in Germany are you joining from?
We're in Bonn, Germany, the former capital when it was the old West Germany.
Yes, and also it's the birthplace of
Beethoven.
I just think that's really cool that Beethoven was born there. So thank you for
Geboren in Bonn. So in terms of an audio description of myself, I better give one. I'm a recently 43 years old. I look much older. I'm pretending I have hair still. I'm receding heavily with blondish hair. Spectacles. I've got a very long face, as people say, and I'm wearing a white t-shirt. And in my background, I have the We the 15 logo, which is a purple outline circle with a wedge representing 15%. So that's a description of myself, looking much older than I actually am.
I don't think so. I think you look really, you look like you're 43. That's a
Thank
good
you,
age.
Deborah.
That's a perfect
we know
age.
you're lying.
You're so funny. Well, tell us more. Well, first of all, the IPC, the International Paralympics, it's like I was amazed with the amount of coverage that you got. And I was saying to you, well, I want to see more people doing Paralympics. I want to see it. And you're like, well, let me tell you what actually we did. And I just had no idea. I'm just stunned at what you have done to get the word out about our community. I think it's really beautiful. So do you mind just telling us about how did you get involved with the IPC? And you play a very important role, Chief Brand and Communications Officer. And I love the work you're doing. I'm a huge fan, so I'll try not to get all giddy, but I just love what you're doing because it's for our community.
Well, thank you for the compliment. So I joined the International Paralympic Committee in September 2010. For those of you who don't know who the IPC are, we're the global governing body of the Paralympic movement, and our primary responsibility is to organise the Paralympic Games every 4 years. When I joined the IPC, 11 years ago now, 12 years ago almost, we were just 35 people. Really small, and we were preparing for London 2012. And my job in charge of communications is to get everyone around the world to know about the Paralympic Games, the performances of our athletes, and to get the world watching and talking about the athlete performances. One of the first things I did when I joined the IPC was reposition the Paralympic Games. I think I knew very little about the Paralympic Games or the Paralympic movement before I joined the IPC. And I quickly realized just how stunning the performances of the athletes were, whether that's someone doing athletics. I mean, we have athletes with a lower leg amputation who can run 100 meters in 10.8 seconds. Remarkable high performance sport. We've got swimmers with no arms who can do 50 meters freestyle in 28 seconds. Now, I can't even do that, and I have two fully functional legs and arms. So I quickly realized, hang on a minute, this isn't just participation. This is a real high performance sport event. We need to get the world to realize that. So we repositioned for London 2012 with the help of London 2012 and our broadcast partners, and really repositioned Paralympic sport as a high performance sport event. Now, the Paralympics is by its very nature, I mean, although the IPC vision is to make for a more inclusive world through parasport, the Paralympic Games is a fairly exclusive event. Not everyone can compete there because it's the best of the best of the best, you could say. I mean, we don't have all sports there. We have 22 sports in the Paralympic program. Not every classification is represented, and because otherwise it'd just be a mega event for everyone around the world. But it is you are talking athletes who have been training for several years, training just as hard as Olympians to get to the Paralympic Games. And through the repositioning, we've seen a real growth in interest and engagement in the Paralympic Games. And the most recent Paralympics in Tokyo were broadcast to more than 150 countries. We had a global TV audience, cumulative audience of over 4.1 billion people. So we're now the world's third biggest sporting event. There's only the Olympic Games and the FIFA World Cup that are bigger than us.
That's amazing.
And what's so amazing now about the Paralympic Games is the impact that we have on society. So when you've got billions of people watching your sport event, the performances of the athletes are changing attitudes towards disability every time they take to the pool, take the track, field of play, because there's this negative stigma around disability around the world, which is ridiculous in today's age. And suddenly when you're watching the Paralympic Games and you see like a blind footballer score a goal that wouldn't look out of place in the English Premier League, you quickly realize, whoa, these people are super talented and the abilities are remarkable. So we change attitudes and that creates opportunities for the world's 1.2 billion with disabilities in society. And then we also work with the host cities to really transform the cities and make them more accessible. We change laws. So in Japan, we there were a number of law changes. I mean, a good example in Japan on how we changed is in 2013, Tokyo won the right to stage the games. At that point, 75% of their metro stations were accessible. It's now 100%. The games was the catalyst for that trigger. There's now laws about how many accessible hotel rooms each hotel must have in the city. That would never have happened had the Paralympics not been there. So we've got a great success story. And like I said, when I joined, there were 30 of us. Now there's 140. So that's just a sign of just how big the Paralympics has become. And with that platform, we want to initiate more change around the world. So really exciting times.
It really, really is exciting times. And I visited Vancouver. I went and spoke at Vancouver. I was stunned how accessible the Vancouver city was after, and that was years after you'd had the Paralympics there. Every single taxi cab, they could support somebody with a wheelchair. Every one of them. You didn't have to wait for that one taxi with a wheelchair. I was like stunned. And so then you do it in London and everywhere you go. I don't think our community understands the legacy that you create when you go there and during it and afterwards. It is very powerful. Beyond just the athletes changing our minds. I know that now, I know here in the States, for example, we see Paralympians in our commercials all the time. And I mean, just looking from the US lens, but I know that's happening all over the world, but they're telling their stories through the stories of these athletes because they're such brilliant stories. And so I'm just amazed at the numbers and what you've what you've done with it, Craig. Thank you from our community. Thank you. I know it's not just you.
I was going to say, I'm not taking the full responsibility for this. There's a tremendous network of like my colleagues. We all share our passion for inclusion, but what's so important about the Paralympic movement is the volunteer base. There's 140 paid staff at headquarters, but there's so many volunteers around the world who help us in our everyday thing. And without the volunteers, we wouldn't be anywhere. But I mean, you talk about the figures and the fact that, look, we transform cities, but that improvement in the city infrastructure doesn't stop on the day of the closing ceremony. It continues. And one of the greatest examples is Barcelona in 1992. They staged the games. They completely transformed the city which was fairly inaccessible before the games. They built accessible transport infrastructures, an accessible village. But the city continued to invest far more once the games had finished because they started to see the potential. Hey, hang on a minute. We're becoming the tourist destination of choice for persons with disabilities in Europe. Beijing is a tremendous example. We've got the Winter Paralympics kicking off on the 4th of March. In the build-up to the 2008 Paralympics, the Chinese government invested 1 billion RMB. Which is the equivalent of what they'd invested in the previous 25 years. And they made 14,000 facilities, not just in Beijing, but around China, including the Great Wall of China, accessible for wheelchair users. I mean,
Thank
you can just think of the impact that we're going to have. And now what our job is to do is not just make an impact in the host city, but how can we have a bigger impact in the world? Because with the platform, that's what we want to do.
And so tell us more about We the 15. And I know it's a movement designed to transform the lives of over 1 billion people with disabilities around the world. And it's really powerful what you're doing. I know that when we saw We the 15, we immediately started turning up the volume along with many other people because it's just everybody's needed. And a lot of people don't realize how y'all transform these cities and how important that is, not only to tourism, but to the people that live there every day. So it's really amazing what you are doing, because this is the way we move things forward. This is the way we all come together and implement the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. This is how we do it. So tell us about IPC. And also, I know it wasn't just the International Paralympics that created it. So will you talk about your founding partners and how you even decided to do this? I mean, I'm so thrilled that you did it, as is so many other people. And also, Craig, you've got to talk to us as you're explaining at some point. Tell us the numbers of We the 15 too. Because I, as a marketing expert, am so jealous that, wow, I'm so proud of you.
So where did we get to where we are? So we realized with the Paralympic Games that we have this tremendous platform to not just engage people in the athletic performances, but change attitudes and challenge the stigma attached to disability. There's no other event in the world for disability that engages 4 billion people. We have an amazing platform. So we realized, look, with this influence, and our athletes are real good influencers now in media, and they've got such a profile that when they complain about something, it gets covered. How could we use that platform that we've got now and the interest we've got in the Paralympic Games to make a bigger difference, not just in the host city, but the world? And then we said, look, when you look at inclusion in the world, you have all these companies in the world, or governments and businesses saying, oh, we're so inclusive. We've done this for gender. We've done this for ethnicity. We've done this for sexual orientation. You're like, hang on a minute. Where's disability? Where is disability when it comes to the inclusion agenda? So we looked at saying, look, how can we create something that really puts the world's 1.2 billion persons with disabilities, who make up 15% of society, how can we put them at the heart of the inclusion agenda? And then we said and looked around. I mean, I've been at the IPC 11 years, and I'm like, there's so many people who want the same thing. Mm-hmm. But why are we not working together? Do you know what I mean? There's so many organizations who are all working towards the common goal, but people have been working in silos. So what we said with We the 15 was, we've got an idea. We want to organize a decade-long campaign to transform the lives of 1.2 billion people. Quite a big aim. And we said, right, who can we work with to bring this to life? So our starting point was the International Disability Alliance, and a good friend of mine now, Vladimir Cook, their executive director.
Talented. Yeah, so talented.
And we sat down with the International Disability Alliance and said, look, this is what we're thinking of doing. We want to use the Paralympic Games as a platform and a Trojan horse to engage the 85% without disabilities in issues facing the 15% with disabilities. And we want to change the world, and we want to do it together. And we want to bring together a super group of organizations who can really bring this to life. They really liked it. And together, the IPC and International Disability Alliance have spearheaded We the 15. Then what we did is we started working out, like, who do we need with us on this journey?
Right.
Sport is a tremendous tool for engaging massive audiences. The IPC is not the only body who works in the area of sports for persons with disabilities. So we knocked on the door of Special Olympics, Invictus Games. For those people who don't know Invictus Games, they organize events for injured war veterans. And then we also brought in Deaf Olympics. So for the first time in history, you had the 4 organizations who specialize in disability sport working together and providing that platform where sport can engage mass audiences. We the 15 fundamentally is a human rights campaign. We want to advance the human rights of the world's 1.2 billion persons with disabilities. So we brought in UN Human Rights and the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. We then looked at the other UN bodies. We brought in UNESCO. Like you said about advancing the Sustainable Development Goals. So we brought in the UN SDG Action Campaign. We then looked at who else could really advance our message and advocacy. So Global Citizen do lots of cause-related projects. We brought in Global Citizen, which brings with it a fantastic celebrity base like Coldplay, Lady Gaga, things like that, who can really communicate the messages. And then we brought in organizations advocacy organizations like the Zero Project,
love the
Global Disability Innovation Hub. And before long, we had a fantastic network of 18 organizations. And what was amazing about this was we've all got our own objectives, but we were very clear from the start, look, let's put our egos and what we want to achieve for our own organizations at the door. Let's enter this room, this virtual room, because this all came together via kitchen tables and spare bedrooms with everyone working from home. Put the egos at the doors. Let's focus on the 15% and how we can work together to advance the common cause. And it was amazing. And we came up with so many ideas. And then Adam and Eve is our advertising agency. Adam and Eve is one of the biggest communications agencies in the world. They've been working pro bono for the IPC for 3 years now.
Wow.
They were the ones who, together with an organization called Pentagram, they devised We the 15. They designed the identity. And that was the starting point. So we came up with a super group and then said, look, where do we launch this? Well, let's launch it just before the Paralympic Games in Tokyo. That's when the world will start to think about disability issues. And actually the postponement of the Games by a year for the pandemic helped the campaign. It gave us more time to plan, but also made the need for this campaign more real because the pandemic was disproportionately impacting persons with disabilities. And our campaign is a message like, look, we've got to change this. We've got to change lives. So we looked at Tokyo. We created a campaign film. And the idea behind the campaign film was to show how society perceives disability through 2 lenses. At one end of the spectrum, you have pity. Right. And at the other end of the spectrum is pedestal. Oh, you're such an inspiration. You're my hero. Persons with disability just want to be in the middle.
Right.
And what we wanted to show was that persons with disabilities are just like any other human being. They're beautifully ordinary. So we filmed the TV commercial in 7 different countries with 48 actors with disabilities. And we had a bit of humor in there, and we created a 90-second commercial that we translated into 10 different languages. Oh. And then what we did is we gave that TV commercial to our broadcast rights holders. And those broadcast rights holders, 70 responded and gave us free airtime. So they broadcast it across their TV channels during the Paralympic Games during commercial breaks. We integrated We the 15 into the opening and closing ceremonies of Tokyo 2020, reaching 500 million people. And then what we also did is we wanted to really communicate purple as the color of the campaign. So we illuminated 225 landmarks, iconic landmarks. So we started in Brisbane and we finished in Las Vegas. Along the way, we did like Times Square, Piccadilly Circus in London. We all went purple, which was stunning to see. We did a global media relations campaign. And then we also worked with the social media platforms, Google, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, to really amplify across to engage Generation Z. And then finally, we worked with our commercial partners, the sponsors of the games. So the likes of Coca-Cola were doing a whole advertising campaign in Japan all about We the 15 and how the world needed to advance the rights of 1.2 billion people. That all came together between the 19th of August and the 5th of September. So it was 2 years in the planning. And it all came together really well, responded. And like you said, the figures are beyond my wildest dreams. So I set this ambitious target and everyone laughed when I said, I went, just imagine if we can get 500 million people to see the campaign film. And in 3 weeks, 750 million people had watched the campaign film. And that we're over 1 billion now for the campaign film. The media relations coverage, and again, we had 3 of the world's biggest PR agencies, Fleischmann Hillard, Porter Novelli, and Portland, working with us on a pro bono basis. The media coverage reached 6.7 billion people. That's 80% of the global population. We had 3,000 pieces of media coverage on launch day. On Twitter alone, 2.4 billion impressions of the hashtag We the 15. So tremendous global awareness. And what's really fantastic is that the research shows that 21% global awareness for We the 15.
Wow. Already.
So from the 19th of August to now, 1 in 5 people are aware of We the 15. And then the cherry on top was that COP26, the big conference that was held in Glasgow in the UK, I think in a few months ago, the We the 15 film and a message from one of our ambassadors was played out at the opening ceremony of COP26 to 120 world leaders, a mixture of presidents, prime ministers, and other elected officials. So fantastic launch.
Yes, fantastic launch. Thank you.
Now the hard work begins.
But also now the community continues to get behind you. I know that you had mentioned the corporate sponsors. You also, which I loved, included the Valuable 500 as one of your key partners because they're representing 500 corporations that have committed to include us. But how do they do it? How do they really include us? So it's once again about us all coming together, which is, I just love what you're doing. But talk to us a little bit about, and I know the answer, so I'm, but this is not just about athletes. This is not just for, top entertainers with disabilities. This is really a movement for us all. So.
Absolutely. This is all about how can we use the profile of the athletes and the performances of the athletes, not just to change their lives, but then change the world for 1.2 billion people and really communicate the issues that are facing 15% of the population. Because just that 15% figure, that 15% figure is 21 years old now, so it's far higher.
I agree. We don't even know for sure what the numbers are. We know at least 15%. A
lot of people don't realize the figure is as high as 15% because many disabilities are hidden. There's many people who don't disclose their disabilities for whatever reason, facing their circumstances. So just getting people to realize the size of that community, which is the world's largest marginalized community, has really provoked conversations. And people have been knocking on our door saying, wow, we thought we were inclusive. We're not. Right. How do we get involved in this decade of action? So since the launch, we've gone back into a room because the launch was far more successful than we expected. And we've gone back to the drawing board. We've had to go back and not reinvent We the 15, but reconfigure it so that anyone in the world, no matter whether you're a government, a business, a city, or an individual, can contribute to change. And that's what's really important now. So we're moving from the awareness phase, which was the launch of We the 15, and around the Beijing Paralympic Games, you'll see us kick into phase 2, which is action. And that's where we, now the hard work begins.
I agree. And we have to
changing the world.
You.
Exactly. And we need to work together.
Because everybody has to work together. I agree.
The launch has shown if you work together, and Caroline Casey, the Valuable 500, is a perfect example of this. Mm-hmm. Caroline could have easily said, I don't want anything to do with this. The Valuable 500's nearly got its 500 organization. So why would I bother with you? She was like, I love this. It's what the world needs. We've got sport. We bring business. We've got these people doing civil society. Let's all work together, amplify why change is needed. And let's just look, no one wants to be selfish here and say, I was the person who changed the world. Here, you've got multiple organizations around the world, multiple people who all want the same thing. Together, we can do it. We really can, and we must.
And you've already shown what you can do. Yeah. And I agree. It's not one person. It's all of us working together, not being jealous, not getting in the lack mindset that, oh no, because I had a couple of people say to me, oh, did you see We the 15? Because I know you're creating Billion Strong. And I said, yeah. And we immediately started, posting and reposting and commenting and they're like, really? I said, yeah, we are thrilled that We the 15 is here. I think this always talking about lack. And like you said, I'm the one person in the world that changed it. No, let's all come together and help each other. Totally. And I know we're very proud at Rue Global. I do have to say this, that IPC is one of our customers and we've worked with the Americas. I know, I don't know what their name is.
America's Paralympic Committee, our regional body in the Latin America. Yeah.
Yeah. We were very, very, very honored to work with them too. So we love what you're doing. We love what you already done. And then when we heard about We the 15, I was like, yay, thank you. Not though really understanding the impact you're going to have right out of the gate. Wow.
There's no room for rivalry or egos when you're trying to advance the rights of 1.2 billion people.
I agree. And the 1.2 people need us to do this. And when I was talking about Billion Strong, for example, I was talking about it with some Americans and they're like, yeah, but what is Billion Strong going to do to protect us? And I said, well, that's not what we're about. We're about identity, coming together, celebrating. There's others in the United States, for example, that are happy with to do the litigation stuff. That's just not where we want to play. We want to celebrate. We want to bring together. We want to brag about efforts like We the 15. And so it's going to take all of us coming together. But what I would like to know, Craig, is how do we support what you're doing? How do we as the community, how do we as corporations, there's a lot of corporations. I know corporations love to sponsor the Paralympics, but I'd like to see more corporations stepping in. And I also want to compliment you on something. I like also that the Paralympics will not take on certain corporations if they're doing things that, are not in the best interest of society, because I've had corporations say, well, we tried to sponsor them and they wouldn't let us because of this thing we did. And I was like, thank you, Greg.
So what happens next is the big question, I guess. How do people get involved?
Right.
So we've got the Beijing 2022 Paralympic Winter Games coming up on 4th of March as the opening ceremony. So you'll start to see a bit of movement for us in the coming weeks. So what we've gone back to the drawing board and said is, right, what is We the 15? And we've said that We the 15 is a movement that campaigns on behalf of the world's 1.2 billion persons with disabilities to provoke change. So you'll see from us going forward, campaigns work and also a movement work where we initiate change.
Cool.
So at the Global Disability Summit, which is coming up, being hosted in Norway and by the Norwegian government, the government of Ghana, organised by the International Disability Alliance. That's coming up in mid-February. We'll be announcing our 10-year strategy. And then off the back of that, on the 1st of March, we will roll out phase 2, which is the global media relations campaign for the second phase of We the 15. We'll be announcing, and I can't reveal too much because otherwise I steal our thunder for the big announcement at Global Disability Summit. We'll be announcing how anyone in the world
Oh,
and
good.
contribute towards We the 15. How anyone on this planet, whether you're a world leader, whether you're a mayor of a city, whether you're a chief executive of an organization, or even like a local shop or local baker, butcher's, supermarket, or even an individual, how can you contribute to this campaign? We want everyone to take action and say, this is what I'm going to do to advance the rights of 1.2 billion persons with disabilities. And we want everyone to make a commitment, to make a change. And we'll be announcing how people can do that via our website, we15.org. And we'll be announcing this whole campaign, what we're going to do. And then that's going to be the big announcement. And then what we're going to do is what we decided is that people, this 15% figures really resonated.
Oh, yeah.
And the film, when people see it, really opens the eyes. So we want more people to see the film. We've had over 1 billion views of the film already. We want more people. I mean, there's 8 billion people on this planet. So we've got 7 billion people who haven't seen it. So how can we get more people seeing the film, and how can we build awareness for the campaign? That'll continue through to the Paris 2024 Paralympic Games. Around the Paris Games, we're going to change the narrative of the campaign slightly and start tackling an issue that impacts the world's 1.2 billion persons with disabilities. And then we'll do a real 2-year push on that campaign element. Then using Milan 2026 Paralympic Winter Games, we'll then change the narrative again and tackle another issue.
Wow.
And then by LA and the Paralympics in LA, which is a huge opportunity for the Paralympic movement, because the profile of the Paralympic movement in the US is far behind where we are, say, in Europe. How can LA is such a platform for us to change, and we'll do a whole campaign around LA, which really prompts, especially like Hollywood. I want to change Hollywood.
I agree.
And the LA Paralympics is the best thing. And that's why we brought in an amazing organization led by Keely Catwell, Sea Talent, who focuses on getting persons with disability on camera and behind camera.
Fun.
Because we've got to change Hollywood. This is what we're trying to do with We the 15 is change culture.
Oh, gosh.
Sport can do that, but also so can the entertainment industry. Let's see more persons with disabilities on TV, on front of camera, behind camera, everywhere.
And also, Craig, it's you're humanizing the issues. You're humanizing them, and you're normalizing this, because people with disabilities are just part of society. But I want to talk. Well, I want to tell you, we will provide a link to the campaign video, so hopefully our audience will watch it and share it and use the tag We the 15 every time. Anything you're doing something disability positive related, use the tag, because this is our tag. This tag belongs to our community. Let's all use it. Let's all support what they're doing. But Craig, one thing that I have learned as somebody that has loved the IPC forever and watched the games, I still, though, even though I'm in the field, I myself have an invisible disability. I have a daughter with Down syndrome. My husband has a disability. I still did not really understand everything y'all do to support these athletes. It's like making sure they have their assistive technology they need, and making sure that the Olympic Village is fully accessible. There is so much that y'all do that I just think a lot of us don't understand all the efforts that you make to make sure that these athletes can be successful, and how those skills and all the stuff y'all have learned can be applied to society to make society more accessible to all of us. So I just want to give you a shout out for that. But it's amazing what y'all get into. It's just amazing.
I mean, planning a Paralympic Games isn't an overnight thing. It takes we work with the host city for 7 years, and at the moment we're already working on Brisbane 2032, so it's a 10-year journey.
Wow.
And so what does that journey look like for us? Well, from an accessibility point of view, we plan out the journey from the moment the athlete leaves their home city to arrival. So the airport they land in needs to be fully accessible. And you imagine an airport, they might have maybe 20 or 30 persons with disabilities who travel through their airport each day. The Paralympics comes to town, and suddenly 4,300 persons with disabilities all arrive on the same day. That is a monumental logistical challenge. But what happens there is instantly there's a legacy for the airport, because they suddenly realize, how can I if you get a flight, say from the US Paralympics flying to town, you might have 70 wheelchair users on the flight. Keeping that flight on time, ensuring that the chairs of the athletes are at the gate so that they can quickly get back into living their own lives and not having to be pushed around an airport by an airport official is huge.
And you're not damaging their wheelchair.
Exactly.
Which happens all the time.
Things like that. So and then obviously from the airport, people need to get to the village. So the transport has to be fully accessible. So we plan meticulously everything. And then in the village, all the accommodations accessible, the dining room where the athletes go to eat. Obviously, the counters have to be a certain height. And we meticulously plan. And for many host countries, it's the first time they've gone into such detail when it comes to the accessibility of persons with disabilities. And that's why we publish an accessibility guide that we give to the host city and say, this is what you need to do. This is the gradient that your ramps need to be. This is how to do the perfect accessible bathroom. And we go through all the level of planning with the organizing committees to ensure that when people get to the games, things are right. Now, don't get me wrong, not everything. Right. There will always be things that can be improved on, but that's what the joy of society is. I mean, nothing is ever perfect. We aim for it, but there's always key learnings. And that's what's so great is that the cities then continue to learn afterwards and continue to make improvements. And Barcelona is a great example of that.
Yeah. And I will give you one more compliment. I'm sorry, I'm complimenting you today, Craig, but I also like that the consultants and the employees of IPC often are former athletes themselves. I know one of them, Eliana, who is originally from Cuba, and she's an architect that lives in Texas and is brilliant and a former swimmer. But I thought, oh, I love how you protect your own and you work with corporate, you work with people that are part of the community. I just love that.
Totally. Our chief executive is a two-time Paralympian, competed for former USA 7-a-side footballer.
Wow. Yeah, footballer. I just love that. So, and maybe our community doesn't understand how much y'all really take care of our community. And so I just wanted to give you a shout out for that too.
But we've got to lead the way. Do you know what I mean? We can't say to businesses around the world, you're not employing persons with disabilities if we're not doing it. Right. So, and one thing, like we're getting a new headquarters here in Bonn in Germany. The German government is currently, it's spent 2 years. We're trying to make our building like world leading when it comes to accessibility. Wow. Because if the IPC doesn't have a fully accessible world leading facility, then how can we expect it of others? So, but we have within our workforce, we have a full range of persons with disabilities, which is really tremendous. Because why? Well, there's no reason why you wouldn't. Do you know what I mean? It's like a person with a disability can do a job like anyone else. And also, we've got to come from a very authentic place. You can't have persons without disabilities saying this is what persons with disabilities want. And the amount of times, I don't have a disability, but the amount of times where I've come up with an idea, shared it with my colleagues, and they've said, no, you're in a completely wrong place here. That's just not going to resonate. You're going completely wrong direction. And that's really important. But it's great. In comms alone, we've got a Paralympic champion. One of our designers, she won gold in Tokyo in hand cycling. I've got a guy who manages our TikTok account, Richard. He's a football 7 CP footballer from the Beijing Games, from representing Great Britain. Ooh. Brilliant. It's brilliant.
It's amazing. I did not realize everything that was involved in this. And that's one reason why I wanted to make sure my audience learned some that they maybe already knew it, but I think it's really brilliant. So, okay, I know I've kept you longer as usual, but I just love what you're doing and we are 100% behind you. But tell us, I know we've already talked about this, but the how people can learn more about it, your social media handles, the IPC website. We'll make sure that we provide a link to the campaign video. Once again, we have to help them be successful. This is for us. So we all have to help them be successful. We have to sponsor them. We have to support them. We have to use our hashtag. We have to be there and be visible and help. So I just say that to the audience.
So
And
in terms of the plug, I mean, the Paralympic Games are coming up in Beijing, Winter Games. We'll be live streaming that on paralympic.org and youtube.com/Paralympics. It's also going to be on TV around the world. So in the US, it'll be on NBC. Great coverage there. In terms of We the 15, the website is we15.org, and you can follow the Twitter channels at We the 15. You can see the campaign film and see what we're doing next. And yeah, give us a follow. And your commitment to the campaign could just be sharing the campaign video. And
I agree.
By doing that, people realize 15% have a disability, and persons with disabilities are beautifully ordinary and wanting the same things as anyone else on this planet.
I agree. And I just love the blended and the partnership and the collaboration. And I just really applaud everything that you're doing. So thank you, Craig, for We the 15. We all of us need to use the tag. We need to support him, and we all need to be part of the Paralympics, because this is changing society. So Craig, we really, really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah.
You've been listening to Human Potential at Work. To learn more about Rue Global Impact, visit rueglobal.com. And to learn more about Billion Strong, an identity and empowerment organization designed to bring the billions of voices of persons with disabilities together, you can join the global community and donate at billion-strong.org. That's billion-strong.org.